Folks, it's Monday. It is 7 o'clock here in the PM, and that means it is time for Monday Night Nerd. Welcome! Thank you, everybody, for tuning back in tonight. Tonight, we got a really fun episode. We're going to take a little path not usually taken here on the show. Usually, we talk about movies. Usually, we talk about cosplay. We talk about video games. Tonight, we are talking about guitar solos and best guitarists, because deep down, this channel is called Monday Night Nerd. That's what the podcast is about. It's all about nerdy things that I love. And while I have loved comics and cosplay and movies and video games, music was my first love, my first nerdy thing where I needed to know everything about it. And tonight, we're going through my favorite guitar players of all time. And as I said in the story before we started this episode on Instagram, if you came in here thinking that the top three were going to be James Hetfield, Kirk Hammett, and Dave Mustaine because I'm such a Metallica fan, I'm telling you right now, none of them are on the list. So we got a whole bunch of great guitar players. But first, as always, we have to go into some news.
Live from the multiverse, it's Monday Night News.
We have to get through a little bit of news first before we get into all the fun guitar players. First, if you're a video game fan, last week we spent about half the episode talking about the many different video game announcements that were coming down the pipeline, because we had the PlayStation announcements, we had the general announcements, we had Xbox. But last week after the show, we had Nintendo. And Nintendo has been, I don't want to say has been quiet, but ever since the Switch 2 release, there hasn't been a ton of Nintendo news. They came out with their guns blazing with the new Mario Kart and Donkey Kong, and other than that, the system's kind of been on the back burner for a lot of players that I've talked to. Even people that I know personally who've had that console. They love Mario Kart. We love playing it together as a group, but that's kind of been it. Well, they kind of emptied all of their guns on this one, and that was a lot of big announcements. But the big three, we're getting Switch Resorts, Sports Resorts, which I think is great because Wii Sports is one of their best-selling video games ever, coming with the Switch console, or with the Wii console. I'm glad they brought this back. I think when it comes to party games, this is the console that you want, those party games. PlayStation, and they've got some party games, but I think when you think party, you think of Mario Party, you think of Mario Kart, and them taking that genre fan and just giving them everything they need, including the Wii Sports franchise, which is now the Switch Sports franchise, is a great addition. I love that they're bringing that in. They announced a whole bunch of new games on it. They did a thumb wrestling one, which if you've seen the memes, as soon as I watched it live and saw what's-his-name's face in the screen, I knew that was going to be memeable, and they've ripped him to shreds for it in the best possible way. And then you had your Kingdom Hearts fans just go nuts with the announcement of Kingdom Hearts 4, which is great. That is a franchise that I've tried multiple times. I've tried so many times to get this franchise into my brain and to love it. Never been able to do it. I've started number 1 a couple times. I've started 2. I've started 3. None of them got me into it. But I'm happy for them. I really do think this is a cool franchise. It's just not my franchise. And from what I've seen, 4 looks good. I was talking to my friend Edith, who I've mentioned here on the podcast a bunch. She was watching the live as well as I was. At the same time, we were kind of messaging back and forth. And she messaged just before this trailer came out and said, a lot of the games that are announced on this, the colors are very muted. Like when I think of Nintendo, when I think of the Mario franchise and all the Smash Bros and stuff, it is very colorful. But all the trailers that came out seemed very muted. And then when I saw Kingdom Hearts, I was like, oh, this is going to be so colorful. So muted. Like everything was muted in that trailer. But again, I saw so many fans going nuts online about it, and I'm very happy for them, even though it's not a franchise for me. And then I think, I'm sorry, I've talked about this on the podcast. I'm not a giant Zelda fan. However, the only Zelda game that I have really played is the one that is now going to get a remake, and everyone who's a Zelda fan and Nintendo fan knows we're getting a remake finally of Ocarina of Time in 2026 of all years. They're not pushing it, which makes me think, Nintendo being Nintendo, You've been sitting on this. There is no way that the coincidence of system sales are dropping, interest in the system's not that great now, price just went up, and now we're going to throw in the game that every Nintendo fan since the N64 has wanted a remake of. You can't tell me it's that coincidental. I'm sorry. If they did the Ocarina of Time announcement and they said 2027, okay, I wouldn't believe it. But because it said 2026 and we're already in June, you've had this in the bag for a while. You were just waiting to pull the ace. But either way, as soon as they announced it, I messaged Edith and a few others and I said, they just sold 1 million more consoles, because no matter what the price is, I know enough Zelda fans out there are going to buy the console just for that game. And I can't blame them. It is the one game that everybody has wanted a remake of. So I will not buy it because I don't have enough to play it. I have enough to play on my PlayStation, let alone getting a Switch too. But good for all the Zelda fans. I can't wait to see what it looks like. I can't wait to see what the graphical upgrade looks like. It's going to look amazing properly. Other game news, usually on here we do talk a little bit about video games and what I'm playing. Right now I'm just going through Horizon Zero Dawn again because the remaster came out on the PlayStation Network for free, so I'm running through that because I'm such a big Horizon fan. It has been fun. There are a few games, and this is falling into that world of when I go from the sequel back to the original, it feels like a downgrade. This one is definitely one of those because I played the second one and it was a lot of fun. It's not a very different game, but there are a lot of mechanics that they improved in the sequel. Going back to the original, I really feel that it is a downgrade, which means the sequel was an upgrade, and I'm perfectly happy with that. But there's definitely been a couple fights where I'm like, I know I could have taken these guys in the second game. Why am I getting my butt kicked in the first one? Oh, it's because I don't have this tool and this tool. But still enjoying it. If you've never played Horizon Zero Dawn, it is a blast to play through. I want to say it's about 60, 70 hours if you want to go through all the side quests and stuff. Lots of fun. I think I'm about 50, 60% through. I'm trying to do all the side missions because, again, I'm enjoying it so much. Right now, I'm kind of just kicking back and enjoying because right now I don't have a lot to work on until we get into Fan Expo season. So no big cosplays working on right now. I do have something I am working on, which I will show you in 1 second. But just sitting back, enjoying this, and enjoying a television show, which is something I don't usually do. But Spider Noir has been a lot of fun. I am just halfway through episode 4. Watched a little bit of it just before we jumped on here. But episode 3 is done. I am really liking this series. I told you guys back the 2 episodes ago when I first started watching it. It is a lot of fun. It is, if you haven't seen what this is, it is the Spider-Man Noir comic book that was in the Spider-Verse movie. They have brought it to the real world. Nicolas Cage is starring in it as Ben Reilly, not Peter Parker, and he does an incredible job. It feels like a 40s, 30s, 50s era black and white show, black and white movie. There are 2 different versions. I'm watching it in black and white. I think it's the way to watch it. I know people, some of the younger audience probably wants to watch it in color. Totally get it, but for me, the black and white looks so good. I'm really enjoying it. I will keep you up to date. I don't want to spoil it, but it is a fun interpretation of that world and the characters in it. It is not an exact replica, which I've seen a lot of multiverse type content when it comes to the Marvel and DC universe. They're very good. They're sometimes very bad at doing that, where it will just be the kind of same world, but just the characters look different. No, this is a very different world for Spider-Man and Ben Reilly. It is a lot of fun. Again, when we get closer to the end, after this is out for a while, I'll tell you guys what I thought of each individual episode. But so far, 3.5 episodes in, I am loving this. It's a lot of fun. Cosplay news. Let's talk about cosplay a bit. I'm not really working on anything big until after Fan Expo, probably. I kind of have enough. I kind of want to take a little bit of a pause on building stuff because that guy took a lot of energy to build. I'm going to be doing a little bit of modifications on him. I do have a photo shoot coming up at the beginning of July, so I want to just fine tune him. He did get a little bit beat up from Anime North and the intense weather we had to go through, but he will probably be the Saturday of Fan Expo. I'll probably do Ghost Rider on the Friday, and then it's just kind of figuring out what I'm going to do on Sunday. It's usually something easy. Might be Superboy, might be something else. However, as a creator, as a cosplayer, that does not mean I'm not doing anything creative. If you've seen my stories, if you've seen any posts that I've done the past couple days, and you'll see more over the next couple days, I have finished printing and painting my brand new AR pulse rifle from the Aliens franchise. This is a weapon that I have been a fan of since the first time I saw the movie, and I've had my 3D printer for many, many years thanks to my incredible, beautiful wife. However, it was an Ender 3, which is not the biggest and baddest 3D printer you can get. It's actually pretty slow compared to newer ones. And thankfully for my birthday, she upgraded me and got me a brand new one, which is insane that she got me another one. And I am now able to print big stuff like this. Not all one piece. It was in pieces. But yeah, this is my new pulse rifle. I am debating on different things I could do with this. I might do a Colonial Marine cosplay, but I've also thought, do I just want to do a Ripley cosplay? Do a gender bend Ripley cosplay from Aliens 2 and just have this and have a be carrying around a plush cat. I don't know. But yeah, I am so happy with this. I'm going to be doing some more weathering to it. I'm going to do some customization because all of the Colonial Marines have theirs. And yeah, I'm like, little kid me is so happy with this. This was one of the movies that when I was a kid in the early 90s, they made toy lines for adult movies. Like there was a RoboCop series that I had toys from. There was a Terminator series. There was an Aliens series that I had toys from. And I've always loved that gun. And it is so cool to have my own version of it now. Other than that, the only other thing I want to talk about is if you saw my story just a little while ago, I can finally announce that I was invited to the Supergirl premiere next week on Tuesday the 23rd. If you know anything about my love of the last Superman movie, I absolutely love it. I think it was one of, if not my favorite recent superhero movies. The entire movie was absolutely incredible. I could go on and on of how much I love this. And the Toronto Game Expo invited me to come out with the rest of them and see the premiere in Toronto. So I will be there on Tuesday the 23rd. If you're in the Toronto area, come by, swing by. I don't know if tickets are available, but it is going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be a lot of photos and a lot of videos that come out of it, similar to the Mortal Kombat premiere that I was invited to a few months ago. But yeah, super excited for that. I wasn't sure if we could talk about it or not, but because the story was just shown with all of us in it, I am very stoked to go see the new Supergirl movie. However, it does look from the trailer that something happens to Crypto temporarily, and I am an animal lover and a dog owner. I don't know how I'm going to do with that, but I'm still going to enjoy it and have a lot of fun. That is kind of it for the news, folks. If you're still here, if you can hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and all those things, it would mean a lot. And you folks on TikTok, if you can hit the follow button, we do this every single Monday night here, 7 p.m. on the TikTok. And if you want to be a part of the conversation, hop over to YouTube at Monday Night Nerd, and you can join in the conversation because I can't look at both screens all the time. Who do we have in chat? We have Marcy here tonight, and we have Brian in chat just dropping by to say it was great seeing you at Niagara Falls Comic-Con last week. Paige was super nice. Same with Steve Whitmore. Hope you had a great time at the event. Of course I had a great time at the event. It was Niagara Falls Comic-Con. How can you not have a great time at Niagara Falls Comic-Con? When it comes to Comic-Cons, by the way, I am kind of done until Fan Expo, which is weird. Usually there's something going on now, but nope, nothing. YetiCon is going up in a few weeks, I believe. I believe it's in a week, 2 weeks. I will not be attending YetiCon because A, I was not invited, B, it's a 3-hour drive, and it's just way too far for me. Like I said, I'm just going to take a break and enjoy just doing little cosplays. Sponsor of the show, as always, if you don't know, how do you not know if you have seen the show before? My beautiful, loving, amazing, incredible wife is always the sponsor here on the show because, well, she got me something that would make me build this. But no, seriously, without her, I would not be the person I am. Without her, I would be a very different person without her. She knows that. Everyone knows that. And I'm not doing it just to suck up. It is the absolute truth. Without her, I'd be very different and probably a lot worse. So, hun, you will always be my sponsor. I love you. Pretty Nerdy Crystal has joined us in the chat working on the shoes. Crystal is usually working on cosplay because she hears my beautiful voice in the background and it calms her into working on her cosplays. Can't wait to see what that comment looks like where she laughs at me. All right, folks. It is time to jump into what we call here the main event.
It's time for the main event.
Wow. That was my guitar solo, folks. I'm not a guitar player. I am a drummer. I am not a guitar player. So you're again, if you weren't here for the beginning of the episode, you're probably wondering, Myers, we usually talk about cosplay, video games, and all that stuff here on the podcast. Why are we talking about music? Well, because music was my first nerdy love. I grew up kind of rummaging through my mom's record and CD collection when I was a kid and fell in love with music. And when I fall in love with something, and you probably realize this with cosplay and wrestling and everything else, I kind of dive headfirst into it and want to know every single thing about it. I want to know who, what, where, when, why it started, where it is now, where it is going, and the history of it. Music was that first thing. I started first as a Kiss fan. That was the first band that my mom introduced me to, and then with my love of that, I then dove deep into everything else. And when I say everything else, I don't mean just a little bit. I mean, as of this moment, on my hard drive here, because I do not have Spotify, I do not have YouTube Music, I have YouTube Premium because I don't like commercials, but on my hard drive, and some of them are on my phone, I have over 41,000 songs, and probably, I think it's about a 300 song playlist on my YouTube background, my playlist on YouTube. So 41,000 songs that I've collected over the years because when I was a kid, I would go to the library and I would literally just go through the music section, go through the CDs, bring my backpack, and I would just start throwing CDs in there that I thought looked cool. Cool cover art? Cool. Is this a band or an artist that I'm aware of and I've never heard this? In there. And I would bring them home and I would rip them all onto my computer. And I now have a giant hard drive worth of songs. I have songs and versions of things that I cannot find anywhere, which is one of the reasons why I don't have Spotify, because I might want to listen to an odd recording of a song from blah, 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 blah that isn't available on there. So with that, I fell in love with guitar players, as with most rock and roll fans. Problem being, I can't play guitar. And I've talked about this many times on the podcast. I have baby hands. I have very baby hands. So trying to wrap my hand around a guitar was just not in my wheelhouse. And that is just something I've come to live with. However, I do have amazing cardio, so I learned to play the drums. But I've always been envious of guitar players. I've always been a fan of guitar players. So tonight I want to go through my top 10 guitar players. Now, as I said at the beginning, we could easily just do thrash metal, and I could go through Scott Ian, James Hetfield, Dave Mustaine, all the guys from every thrash band that I love. However, that would kind of be a boring list. I want to go through a bunch of different guitar players that I love, that I feel like have their own iconic sound that I have just loved over the years. Now, again, this is not all going to be thrash metal. This is not going to be speed metal. This is not going to be rock and roll. This is going to be everything. There's 10 in here. I'm going to go through, I've got a bunch of points on here that I've written down, so if I keep doing this, it's not because I don't want to look at the camera, I just want to make sure I get the points right, and at the end of each person, I'm going to give you guys 3 songs that you should check out, because I know these songs very well, so I could sit here and just say, you should listen to this artist because they're great, But if you've never heard of them or you're just a casual fan of them, you might want a little bit of a recommendation on where to hear them to play the best. So let's jump into the first one. And this is one that, as someone who saw this band only a couple years ago for the first time, wishes he got to see this person in the band, but unfortunately, due to something that we will talk about, unfortunately, he is no longer with us, and we did not get to see him live, and that is Dimebag Darrell Abbott from Pantera. Now, if you're a metal fan, you know who Dimebag Darrell is. He is the absolute incredible guitar player, like I said, from Pantera. Grew up as a Kiss fan, as you can tell. That little thing underneath his guitar, at the end of his guitar, is the faces of Kiss. What makes Dimebag Darrell such a great guitar player? Well, first, he has such a groove sound to his guitar playing. If you've never heard of Pantera, this is where groove metal came from. He has got his own sound that he brought to Pantera, which started out as a hair metal band, which made me laugh when I first heard about it because they are so not a hair metal band. But if you really listen to the music, there are lots of elements of hair metal. He's got such a southern groove. They're all southern boys. Him, his brother, Rex, and Phil. They had such a great sound, and as a solo guitar player in the band, he was in charge of the rhythm and the guitar solos, which, if you're not much of a guitar player and don't really know a lot about bands, a lot of metal bands at this time and in the 80s had two. You had a rhythm guitar player who kept the groove going, and then you had your lead guitar who had your solo performances. This guy had to do both, and he was incredible at both. Very aggressive sound, very deep sound. Albums like Cowboys from Hell, Vulgar Displays were such great albums. Very good at using the whammy bar in his guitar playing, which really got me going. There's some people that almost use it as a crutch, and I don't want to talk about those guitar players, so I don't want to throw them under the bus in my opinion, but listening to him, especially on songs like Domination, if you've ever seen the Metallica performance in Russia where they're performing in front of hundreds of thousands of people, there were other bands on that list that nobody really talks about, and Pantera was one of them. So they were another band that was in front of that giant audience. And if you go check out them playing Domination in front of that crowd and Dimebag just ripping on that solo, it's perfect. He does such an incredible job. So we're going to give Dimebag Darrell a little bit of praise here. If you want to know and hear any more of him, I highly recommend you go out and check out Pantera's Walk, which has one of the greatest riffs I've ever heard. Domination, like I said, similar style, but an amazing solo. And honestly, I've had a bunch of Pantera fans come up, and when we were talking about our favorite songs at the Metallica show where they opened for them, people were asking, what song do you want to hear? And honestly, I think one of his best riffs that he ever came up with was I'm Broken. I think that's one of my favorite sounds. Marcy in chat, Cemetery Gates, another amazing song. We're on a ballad of theirs, kind of a ballad, a slower song of Pantera's. But yeah, Walk, Domination, I'm Broken are my three, and Marcy recommending Cemetery Gates. So we're kicking things off with a bang. Oh, and if you didn't know, unfortunately, due to a fan that took his obsession way too far, Dimebag Darrell was unfortunately killed on stage during a performance in his band after Pantera, Damage Plan. Go check out, back in the day, they had Behind the Music on VH1. They did a whole Pantera episode where they talked about that and talked about the incident. It is unbelievably heartbreaking to hear. When I was alive when that happened, and I heard about it, and it was just terrible. A legend in the music world, and unfortunately, he's no longer with us. So we've started things off with a bang with Dimebag Darrell. Let's jump into the next one on this list. We're going to go a little lighter, but not in a bad way. I think this person fits just the same next to Dimebag, and this is from a band that I think the younger generation is kind of missing out on. This is a band that I knew one of their songs when I first was growing up, and it wasn't till probably the past decade that I've fallen in love with this band a lot more. And that artist and that guitar player is Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits. Now, again, you're probably going, Dire Straits? I don't know what that band is. If you've ever heard the song Money for Nothing, you've heard Dire Straits. Now, this is a virtuoso of the guitar playing world. This is someone that has influenced people like a James Hetfield, not in just the chugga 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 of the metal world, but just guitar playing and songwriting. If Mark has always been an incredible guitar player. Like I said, if you've ever heard the song Money for Nothing, that intro riff is just insane. And I've heard so many people try that intro on different instruments, and no matter what you play it on. I've heard people play it on a bass, I've heard people play it on a cello, I've heard people play it on a harp. It is such a cool song. It is such a fun intro, and he's the one that wrote it. Different songs of theirs that you should look into: Sultans of Swing, another amazing guitar solo from this man. It was the song that really brought Dire Straits into the world. It's a song, it's one of the few, we're going to talk about another artist later on that is really good at doing a very storytelling type song. And there's a lot of artists out there that will do just that: riff, solo, bridge, riff, solo. This is someone that just makes a conversation of a song, brings a story to a song. Also is a composer and has been composing stuff for many, many years that you probably never heard of, that you probably never even realized. Composed the film scores to The Princess Bride. Did you know that? And has collaborated with Bob Dylan. Like, this guy knows his stuff. Like I said, I think Dire Straits is a band that a lot of the younger generation really should look into, because just the songwriting alone, but his guitar playing is incredible. The drumming is incredible. If you've never heard of the band, check them out. Money for Nothing. I wish they played that song more, but unfortunately there's a word in that song that we don't use anymore, and I completely understand why we don't use that word. We shouldn't have used it then, but times were different. So that song doesn't unfortunately get played that much. Sultans of Swing, like I said, another great song. And if you want a slower song, Brothers in Arms is a beast of a song. It is so emotional. That is a song that I think specifically younger players, and I feel this way when I play my drums. There's a lot of drummers that I watch now that feel they overplay everything, is the perfect way to describe it. They feel like they have a 2-minute slot, a 3-minute slot. They need to play 10,000 notes and 10,000 beats. Brothers in Arms is such a good ballad about people serving in the military and what happens when they do. And it's the choice in just a few notes fits so well. It is way more impactful than just going nuts and coming up all these crazy chords and crazy notes. Simple, easy. It just sometimes works better, and he proves it on Brothers in Arms. So I had to put Mark on this list because, like I said, hopefully some of the younger generation checks out Dire Straits, because they are, in the classical world, in the rock world, they are heralded, but I think this younger generation misses out a little bit on them, but giving them their spotlight here. So we've got Dimebag, we've got Mark. Now we got to go into one that I think the younger generation is a giant fan of. And honestly, I am a giant fan of, and it is because of the video game that you know him from that has made me a giant fan of him, and that is Tom Morello. And the reason I'm a Tom Morello fan is because of Guitar Hero 3. I knew of Rage Against the Machine, I knew of Audioslave, but it wasn't until I got into Guitar Hero and played Guitar Hero 3 where I was like, this guy is nuts. it's Tom Morello. Like, if you know anything about the rock world, if you know anything about guitars, you know who Tom Morello is. If you don't, welcome. You're gonna have a lot of fun. Tom Morello is basically someone who can turn his guitar into a turntable. If you've ever wanted your guitar to sound like a mixer, a record scratch, or anything like that, he is the guy. He can turn his guitar into a DJ booth and it sounds insane. Like, I remember playing through that first time you go through the solo where you're facing him and hearing that sound, and just that sound. Because I think that's what confused me, was I heard Rage Against the Machine and I heard of Audioslave, but I didn't really think, like, I'd also heard Slipknot, and Slipknot has 9 members. So I'm thinking, well, this could be a 5-member band. This could be a 12-member band. I don't know. But then you hear him on his own, and I'm like, what the heck is he doing? The scratching, the percussion with his guitar. There's not many guitar players that know how to make a very good percussion sound on a guitar. A very political voice, obviously. Someone who, as the guitar says, arm the homeless. Joining Rage Against the Machine, bringing that to the masses, having a very political voice is kind of what he's known for. But then you also have to go through the Audioslave stuff and his collaborations with a bunch of stuff that's happening right now. We've got him with, I know he did a song with Maneskin. He's got collaborations out the wazoo, probably more collaborations than he has of his actual own recordings, because he's such an in-demand guitar player. He's been tied to that political side, but I think you can easily take him out of it. The stuff he can do with the guitar is absolutely crazy, and he deserves all the credit in the world. If you've never heard of Tom Morello, I don't know what you're doing. Guerrilla Radio by Rage Against the Machine is probably one of, I know people like Killing in the Name of, and I think it's a good song. I personally, though, feel it's overplayed. That is kind of a thing of mine, where if a song, no matter how great it is, if it is like the only song I hear from that artist, I will probably get really sick of it. So I personally like Guerrilla Radio more than Killing in the Name. If you haven't heard his solo stuff, he does do a cover on one of his albums called Voodoo Child by Jimi Hendrix. It is so cool sounding, his version through that song. And again, if you want someone that does all these crazy things with his guitar and could easily make a name for himself just by doing that stuff, if you listen to Audioslave, and I'm going to throw out a song called Be Yourself, which is one of their biggest hits, there's none of that. So to have someone be that good at that, and then without any problem pulling him out of it and playing more traditional, bravo, because that is something that if you have that kind of talent on that one thing, you could easily take that and say, that's my bank, that's how I'm making my money, I'm not doing anything else. No, he can easily strip that down and do a regular guitar sound, and that is a testament to him, that he is such a virtuoso in his realm as well as traditional guitar. So Tom Morello had to make the list. So we've got Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits, we've got Dimebag Darrell, we've got Tom Morello. We have to go into someone again that is unfortunately not with us, because I feel, as a metal fan, if I did not put this person on the list, I would have to give up my metal card. That is Randy Rhoads. For such a short career, a legacy that will live on forever. Seriously. Randy Rhoads on the Ozzy Osbourne albums stands out. And stands out like if you took Ozzy's voice off of that and just played the songs, you could just call it the Randy Rhoads Band at that point, because he is taken over those songs with his guitar playing. This is someone who is classically trained, which is something that I think a lot of people don't think about, that a lot of these classic guitar players like your Jimmy Pages and such, these were all classically trained. And if you're a metal fan like me, if you've never seen the Metal A Headbanger's Journey documentary, it is fun watching them talk about the classical world back in the day. And, you'd have these people that would make these orchestras, but make them tuned down and make them feel grand and huge. And they're going, that's what metal and rock is doing now. So you could see someone like a Randy Rhoads in a classical orchestra because he has that type of feel to it. He was classically trained. He's got Bach influence. His structure is heavy metal, but it's also very classical if you're a classically trained, if you know classical music. Ozzy coming out of the Black Sabbath world, going into his solo stuff, and then getting his solo records and getting Randy on them was just a stroke of genius by Ozzy. It would be hard. It would be hard to have anyone come in after him on an audition and be like, "It's not like you got the gig, kid. You're not going with anybody else." His solos are memorable. If you've ever heard them, they stick in your head. Crazy Train, Mr. Crowley, Bark at the Moon, like they're all just bangers. Again, if you're a metal fan, if you're an Ozzy fan, you know these songs like the back of your hand. If you haven't, folks, check them out. Unfortunately, though, we did lose him in 1982, 25 years old in a plane crash. Only two studio albums under his belt, and he still has a legacy. And I think that his legacy is so strong that it is insane that someone like a Zakk Wylde came in after to replace him and had such big shoes to fill and didn't go and try and copy Randy, although he had to play his songs. He took it in a very different approach with the No More Tears album, and it just made it all his own. So he gave tribute to Randy, as Zakk has sadly had to pay tribute to many guitar players friends that he's lost, but also made it all his own. So you had to put Randy on here. Like I said, just even if you don't like the Ozzy songs, just take Crazy Train, just cut to the guitar solo, and you'll be mesmerized on how good he is. Folks, if you're still here, by the way, if you can hit that follow button, hit that like button. I want to give you guys a minute to catch up if you're just joining. We are here talking about my top 10 favorite guitar players. We've talked about Dimebag Darrell. We've talked about Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits, Tom Morello from Rage. We've got Randy Rhoads from Ozzy. When folks on TikTok, you should hit that follow button and hit those hearts and stuff, because we do this every Monday night. And if you like this type of stuff, we'll do more of it because I like talking about music. Let's go one more. Let's go into number 6. This is a band that I absolutely loved the look of, loved the style, but didn't really enjoy the music that much until that palette of music and palette of songs just had to evolve a little bit. And this is a band now that I love throwing their songs on, especially when I'm out driving, because this just seems like the band that needs to be played when you're out in a car driving with the top down. And that is Billy Gibson from ZZ Top. Now, this is a band that I remember seeing their album when my mom had it, and she still does. She had their greatest hits album. Now, I'm a red-blooded guy. I will be completely honest here with you folks. When I first saw their greatest hits album, they're in sort of a white studio, let's say, and they're kind of setting up for the cover shot, and there is a blonde-haired girl with a lot of cleavage. I will fully admit that caught my attention. That is what got my attention on this album. That made me a fan of the album. But again, I like the cover art. I didn't really listen to the music that much. And then I really started listening to this music and started to realize that there were a few songs that I had heard that I didn't know were them. For example, Give Me All Your Lovin' is a song that I heard many times because I heard it in the Santa Claus movie with Tim Allen, when he's going through, when he's walking around, I didn't know. I liked that song, and I just didn't know it was this. Billy Gibson, an amazing guitar player, absolutely a great tone, a great player. I personally love his guitars. His guitars are not very flashy like a lot of guitar players on this list, but I think that works for him, especially in the style of music, even though he's got a dope jacket on in this photo. Very, very specific tone. There's another guitar player on here that we'll talk about later that is super obsessed with finding the right tone on his guitar. This is not someone that has got a giant effects board in front of him. He just wants to get the right tone from the right guitar and the right amp and the right pickups. And I'm so glad to see that because, like I said, similar with the overplaying of drummers, you could easily get a guitar player out there who just needs to have the whole stage be pedals. And that's great for some guitar players, but I like to see maybe just a little less and see what you can do with that. The iconic beard, I mean, that's nothing to do with the guitar, but the ZZ Top beards are kind of their staple. It is definitely the identifying marker of them. Very bluesy style, very southern, very classic blues sound of all of their music. He was a big influential. His big influences were Jimi Hendrix. So you can definitely hear that in a lot of their songs. If you've never listened to ZZ Top, folks, you are missing out on a lot of good songs. Couple just to start out, Sharp Dressed Man. Like, that is an iconic song. I've got to figure out a way to use it in my cosplay at some point. Give Me All Your Lovin', like I said, another great song, and LaGrange is just mwah. If you want to hear a subtle guitar playing, not overplayed, just a nice run, a nice groove to it, LaGrange is such a great song. Go check out some ZZ Top, especially if you're not a fan, but if you haven't heard them in a while, go enjoy them because they're a lot of fun. So we are at the halfway point, folks. We got only 5 left to go. Who would be on your top 10 guitar players? I don't need you to give me 10, but let's see in the chat. Can we get a couple? Who would be on your favorite guitar player list? Because I just can't have the best. I mean, I like mine, but everybody's got to have their own list. While we wait for that, let's hop into number 5, folks. This is a band that if anyone ever asked me the question, if you could go see any band, living or dead, who would you go see? And before they even finish the sentence, I say this band, and it's never changed. It's always been this. I've got 3 Metallica posters here. I've seen Metallica a billion times. I've seen them 5-6 times. Love them to death. They're my favorite band, but this band wins overall, and I will not go see them because the key member is not there, but one that is still there and is still making incredible music. Brian May from Queen is my number 5. I have been a giant Queen fan for many, many years. Hearing the traditional ones that everyone knows, Bohemian Rhapsody, We Will Rock You, We Are the Champions, the ones that everyone knows, those are great. Those are classics that will live the annals of time. But I really appreciate Brian May's playing, and especially on some odder tracks that most fans of music that aren't diehard Queen fans don't know. Brian May is Brian May. He's very classically trained. He's got such a great orchestral sound to his into his songs, especially with the guitar playing, the strings, etc. going into it. As I said, Bohemian Rhapsody is a perfect example of it. Brighton Rock's another great song of theirs that has that feel to it. This is someone who doesn't use a traditional guitar pick, folks. If you didn't know, this is someone who uses a 6-pence coin to play his guitar, which it plays a factor, folks. We're going to talk about a couple guitar players coming up here that do things a little bit different, And it really does make a difference if you change little things like that. It's a very different tone to his guitar playing than a lot of guitar players. And folks, let's remember, he is an astrophysicist. Yeah, Brian May. After Queen broke up because unfortunately Freddie Mercury passed away, he got his PhD in astrophysics in 2007. And he ended up working with NASA. And he has written academic papers. This man is a brilliant person, not just a rock god. He is an incredible guitar player and a smart man. He is one of the few that I would love to sit down and just, tell me everything, because I would just love to listen to him talk about anything under the sun. If you're a Queen fan and you're not a diehard Queen fan, or if you've not heard a lot of their more, not the Bohemian Rhapsodies and stuff, Invisible Man is one of my favorite songs of all time. He's done an incredible solo in it. I Want It All is another banger of a song, and Headlong, he just blows it away with that riff. So Invisible Man, I Want It All, Headlong are 3 songs I highly recommend you go check out if you're a Queen fan or if you want to know more about Brian May. Marcy in chat, Slash, Nuno Betancourt from Extreme, Jimi Hendrix, Nancy Wilson, James Hetfield, Jimmy Page, Stevie Ray Vaughan, and Eddie Van Halen. That's a good list. That is a solid list. I like that. Pretty Nerdy Crystal says, I feel like Mike met him. I have to ask. I would be very jealous if he got to meet Mr. Brian May. Marcy Hetfield, not Hatfield. I love Brian May too. Yeah, I've always been such a Queen fan. That is one of the CDs my mom had. She had the greatest hits double disc, and I would just sit there and I would just let it play. That is not a CD that I would skip a track. I don't think there's a bad song on that CD. So we got 4 left, folks. Who is making your list, folks? We've got number 4 here. This is one that I have a very funny story about. But we'll get into that once I say who it is. Someone that I remember in high school, everyone was just fawning over and saying, how great he was because they discovered his music for the first time. And I feel like that kind of happens with every generation. And it's hard to deny it. He had a very small recording career, but has left an impact for generations. And that is the man, Jimi Hendrix. Yeah, I remember in high school, there was a group of us that were big music fans that everyone was just like, Jimi Hendrix, oh my God, Jimi Hendrix. And I liked him. I had nothing against him. It's just, again, another one that I needed to grow into. I do remember we had a Christmas performance, not a concert, but like drama performance. And there was a cover of Purple Haze, and it was Santa Sleighs or something, and it was Christmas themed. And I remember we had an amazing teacher at our school named Mr. Brown, and he was the civics teacher, and honestly, one of the best teachers I ever met. Unfortunately, he's passed away. He is such a good teacher that when he passed away and we went to his funeral and we went to the viewing before the funeral, he had 3 of them, I believe, and every one of them, well, at least the one we showed up to, there was a line out the door to pay their respects to him. That's how good of a teacher he was. But anyways, he was supposed to dress up as Jimi Hendrix and come out and do a lip sync to this song, Santa Sleighs or whatever. And he got sick or something happened where he couldn't do it. And I knew the song because I just liked that song. I thought it was a fun parody. And my drama teacher went, Michael, do you mind going out and dressing up in that and doing, the performance? And I was like, even at that age in high school, I was probably 17 and this was in 2006. So, times were different, but not that different. I was like, you know what? I don't think I'm the right. I think I'm a little too white to do this. Like, for many reasons. Like, Mr. Brown was African American. I was like, that fit him so well. I just feel like it's wrong if I go out and do it. Like, again, I don't think anyone would have like thrown a protest or anything, but I was like, no, it's not for me. So I didn't end up doing it. I can't remember who ended up doing it, but yeah, I was asked to do it. I was like, yeah, that's not for me. Jimi Hendrix, obviously an incredible guitar player. You may notice something if you're kind of know a bit about guitars. You may notice that is a Stratocaster, but traditionally that headstock should be switched and should be upside down. That is because he is left-handed playing a right-handed guitar. You get what that means? He's left-handed playing a right-handed guitar. That is different, to say the least. As a drummer, I can hi-hat and snare, but if you told me to reverse that, that's different. And especially for someone as the caliber of Jimi Hendrix, that shows how great of a person, how great of a player he is if he can do that, and he's made a career out of it. He's also has his gimmicky stuff that lighting his guitar on fire famously, playing with his teeth behind his back and stuff like that. Really one of the best showmen of that time, showing off how great of a player he was. And similar to Randy Rhoads, only had a 3-year career. This is something I think a lot of people don't think about. He only had studio albums from 67 to his passing in 70. Like, that's not a lot of time, but that's how big of an impact he made, that in 3 years, he left a legacy. So, Jimi Hendrix, number 4, easy on this list. Jump into our top 3. This one is one that I think a lot of people would be. I don't know about this one, but I had to put this one on because this is an artist that I grew up with. When I was growing up, my mom worked all the time, and forgot to say, Jimi Hendrix, Voodoo Child, Foxy Lady, Purple Haze. Those are your 3 songs. Like, the 3 that everyone knows, but it shows off as playing the best. This is an artist that I heard a lot growing up. When I was young, my mom worked 9 to 5, and my grandma took care of me. And my grandma took care of me. She would sometimes play her music and not my mom's, which was more 80s rock. She went a little more old school. And this is an artist that I heard a ton growing up. And I liked it because it was just a fun sound. But it wasn't until later on when I became really obsessed with music that I really went, okay, this is a player and an artist that I actually really like. And like a lot more of his songs than I thought I did. And that is Mr. Chuck Berry. I loved Chuck Berry growing up. He invented a style back in his day, a style of playing that you could see in so many different artists after him. He influenced the Beatles, he influenced the Rolling Stones, AC/DC, and so many others. Really gave rock that rock sound. And it just did an incredible job at it. Famously, he would do what was called the duck walk, which would be just walking along, playing guitar, and kind of bouncing your left foot while kind of shimmying on your right. I could do it when I was a kid. I can't do it now because my knee sucks. But really took the performance and the showmanship in that time to a level that really wasn't shown off that much. There was a lot of artists that were just perfectly fine behind the microphone, having fun. But then he comes along, he just changes the world. He is very good at really taking that performance side to a new level. And Chuck Berry, guys, if you don't know anything about Chuck Berry, he performed well into his 80s. His last recording was in 2017 at age 90. He played at a local rock and roll joint. I think people say it's like an hour from his house, and he would be there every, I think, Thursday night playing up until, I think he passed away like a year after he stopped playing. And he just played and played and played. He loved it. If you've never heard Chuck Berry, folks, I swear you have. You know the song Johnny Be Good, especially if you're a Back to the Future fan. Other great songs, Maybelline, an amazing riff in that, and Roll Over Beethoven is just mwah. Very big fan of his. Really takes me back to being a kid and thinking of my grandma and grandpa, and hearing that brings me back to that moment, and it means it's one that's always stuck with me. Top 2, folks. We're getting down to the nitty gritty. The next one is one that I think is one of the... If we didn't have this person, the rock world would be very different than it is today. He has made a career out of just blowing people away with his guitar playing. And if any rock and roll fan out there is honest, this is the band we always wish we could get a reunion of, but unfortunately we can't. Jimmy Page. Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin, the architect, I think, of a riff. Like, it's kind of hard to look back behind him and maybe Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath on the two masters, I would say, of bringing out that single riff type song. He's someone that has... It's such an iconic sound and an iconic style of playing that I think so many young guitarists look up to and want to be. And it's great, but I think I don't think anybody would ever get close to being a Jimmy Page. Like, he's just incredible. I'm really starting to fall back in love with Led Zeppelin. I appreciated, like I said, when I was a kid, when I was in high school, when we loved that music for the first time. But then I kind of got tired of it, and it wasn't a bad thing. I just kind of evolved into other types. But now looking back at some of the amazing songs that they did, songs like Dazed and Confused, where you have him playing the guitar with a cello bow, like who would have thought that back in the day? He did. Very good at experimenting, very good with coming up with things that aren't normally done in the rock world. Also did stuff outside of Zeppelin, obviously, because Zeppelin only had their lifespan. He's worked with different artists throughout the world, especially in his home in London. He's worked with people even like Tom Jones, which is something I don't think a lot of people would think as a great collaboration. Marcy in chat says Black Dog, Whole Lot of Love. You got 2 out of the 3. The only other one, which I think everyone knows, and I think you guys need to appreciate it more than we do, Stairway to Heaven. Like, I know it's the most overplayed song, but you know what? It's still a great song, and that's why it's overplayed. There's so many people who, even this movie itself, Wayne's World, craps on that song a little bit of No Stairway, denied, even though they don't play Stairway in the movie. No, it's an incredible song. All right, folks, we are at the 1 point. Let's go through it quickly. We've got Dimebag. We've got Mark from Dire Straits. We've got Tom Morello from Rage. We've got Randy Rhoads from Ozzy. We've got Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top. Brian May from Queen. Jimi Hendrix, Chuck Berry, Jimmy Page. And at the number 1 spot, if you know me, you should have known that this was my number 1 choice because I have been such a fan of this band. It is one of my favorite bands of all time. I was lucky to see them the last time they were in Toronto, and I'm so happy I did because this guy has just changed my view on guitar playing ever since I first heard him, and they're an amazing band, and that is Eddie Van Halen from Van Halen. Now, why am I such a big fan? Just the insane ways that this guy plays the guitar is just baffling to me as a drummer. Such a big fan that when he did pass away, we have two side tables downstairs in our living room. We have one that my wife painted. We have that is like blue and white and green. I have mine, which is literally the road case look of Eddie Van Halen's. The top looks like his guitar right there, and the sides in the black are the road case black with the Van Halen symbol on it. The band invented two-hand tapping. Like, no one knew how to do that beforehand. In fact, when he first started, people were trying to figure out how to play it, so he would turn his back and he would do it so people couldn't see. Building his own guitar, like the Frankenstein Frankencaster guitar, building his own guitar out of his own parts, painting it himself. Such a DIY person, especially me being a cosplayer and building cosplays and stuff by myself. It is such an inspiration to see a guitar player be able to do that. Just influenced so many guitar players from today all the way from when he first started. I remember watching a lot of interviews from bands, seeing Van Halen for the first time and going, okay, either I'm in trouble and I don't have a career, or I need to figure out what he's doing, because there were so many people that tried to copy his style and did a pretty good job, but it's hard to beat the original with Eddie Van Halen. As Marcy said in chat, he is the solo in the Michael Jackson song Beat It, which I believe when I watched an interview of his, he didn't get paid for. I think he just did it. I don't think he got paid for it. Pretty Near Crystal, hands-free. Prince, for me, an amazing guitar player. Yes, I agree. Prince is an incredible guitar player. I am personally not a giant Prince fan. I appreciate Prince, but it is not my cup of tea. And I think the one thing that really stands out for Eddie Van Halen to me is no distortion pedals, which is a mind blow if you've ever seen his setup and listened to his sound. Famously, he talks about what's his name from Smashing Pumpkins coming over and wanting to try out the guitars, and he was like, sure. And he looks down and he's like, where are all your pedals? And he's like, I don't have any distortion pedals. He goes, guitar right into the amp. And he's like, what? And it's crazy that he could easily do so much more with distortions and stuff, but he's like, nope, I'm good. He would rather learn to play different ways, similar to a Tom Morello now, than fart around and have 10 million pedals. So I think that's great. If you obviously have heard of Van Halen, I hope. If you haven't heard of Van Halen, there's a million songs out there. Famously, that I love this stat. They're two most famous songs, which are Jump and Right Now are their two biggest songs. No guitar playing. Eddie is playing piano on that one, which, listening to or reading Alex Van Halen, his brother, the drummer of Van Halen, his book about him and his brother, his mom, who got Eddie to play piano when he was a kid, laughs at, because he's like, no, Mom, I'm going to be a guitar player. And he became one of the best guitar players in the world. And famously, their two best songs when it comes to plays and record sales were him playing piano. If you've never heard of Van Halen, folks, you're missing out. Go check them out. Billy Corgan. Thank you, Marcy. I knew the name was on the tip of my tongue. Songs, you know the ones that everyone knows. I say listen to Eruption, which is his solo. Listen to Ain't Talking About Love. Talk about Pound Cake, one of the newer tracks compared to the David Lee Roth going to the Sammy Hagar world. But yeah, Eddie Van Halen is number one. And again, if you know me at all, you knew this was going to be number one because I'm such a Van Halen fan. Folks, that was a lot of fun. I hope I gave you guys some things to listen to over the next week. I hope you guys have some new music that you could possibly be getting into. Next week, we're going to be coming back from the road of music and going back into video games, because next week we're going to be talking about my love for the Grand Theft Auto series. Yes, we're going to go back into video games because GTA 6 is coming out in a few months, and I want to talk about how much I've loved that series. I want to talk about the first time I put in GTA 3, my love for the GTA Vice City soundtrack, San Andreas and how I actually hated that game when I first played it because it wasn't Vice City, and I'm such an 80s fan that I really didn't like that game until I got into it. And then the evolution into the 10 different versions of GTA 5 that are out now. So yeah, we're going to talk about GTA next week. So if you guys want to tune in, I greatly appreciate that. I hope you guys take some of this music and go check it out, because these are a lot of good bands out there that, in today's world, every 5 minutes you got a new band coming out, you got a new single, you got a new song, and I hope this gives you a little bit of insight into the world of music that I like, and hopefully that helps, because if you could say, Michael, sit you down and tell you what the perfect thing would be, like in a group of people, what would you love? I would love to sit down and talk to people, and I would love to just recommend music and just be like, here, we're going to listen to this song because I think it's really cool and I think y'all love it. I would love to do that. So this is kind of my version of it, is me talking about some of my favorite songs and my favorite artists, and you guys can go check them out, hopefully. So I'm going to let you guys go. If you're still here, by the way, if you can hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, that follow button, all that, we'll be back next week. Hopefully I'll have some more Spider Noir under my belt, so we can talk a little bit more about that, a little bit more about Horizon, and then, we'll talk about GTA. Have yourselves a good week. I hope to see you again very, very soon. And if not, I will see you next Monday. I love you all, and I'll see you next week. Take care, folks. See ya. Thanks so much for watching Monday Night Nerd. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any new episodes.